What's up, guys? I'm Bash Crowley. This is Manly Men Cook with Cast Iron. I'm sorry I haven't been around for a couple of weeks here. My goal was to do a video every week, but with this whole coronavirus thing that's been going on, I just kind of stepped back and let the grocery stores do what they did. I didn't want to dive too far into my stores of meat in the freezer, and kind of waited to see what the grocery store would do. That aside, I did find some good stuff this last time I went grocery shopping, and I'm going to make a gumbo. Now, gumbo is really awesome and not really all that hard. But the first thing you have to do to make a good gumbo is to make a roux. And roux is just basically fat and flour. You traditionally they would have used butter, but you can use pretty much any cooking oil that you want. You could use Crisco if you wanted. You could use lard, whatever. I wouldn't want to use lard or Crisco because those get hard. Those harden up when they cool down some. But any cooking oil pretty much you can use. And I'm actually using sunflower oil today because that's what I have. I don't want to use up all the butter. So the trick to it is to keep your flour and your fat same proportion. So cup of fat, cup of flour. I'm actually doing a cup and a half of fat, so I'll do a cup and a half of flour. But I'm going to add this in slowly. You want to get that all mixed up really well. And the longer you work with this, the darker it's going to get. And I personally feel a good gumbo deserves a good dark roux. But you don't want your flame to be too high. You don't want to use too much heat because you don't want to scorch that flour. We get about another half a cup of flour. That's good. You see that thickens it up pretty quickly. And gumbo's not the only thing that gets a roux. A lot of times, like a good clam chowder would start with a roux. But you wouldn't get clam chowder roux quite so dark. You'd pretty much get it all started and not heat it up too much because you don't want a dark looking clam chowder. With a gumbo, I like to make a good dark roux. So we're going to spend some time, and hopefully this isn't quite as bad as the video where I used where I used a whisk. I hope this isn't quite as harsh a sound. Alright, it's been about 25 minutes or so, and this is really starting to darken up nicely. So I'm going to turn the heat off now. I think that's dark enough. Keep stirring just a little bit longer And what I've got in here is some lamb broth that I made that I've had in the freezer, and I need to go ahead and get that thawed out, so I'm doing it quickly in the stainless steel. It's one of the few things I don't use cast iron for. Anytime I have to do like boiling water or, broth or something like that. But so lamb broth in here that's going to go in this. And I'm going to go ahead and start cutting up the ingredients here to add to the gumbo. So, all right, guys, I got everything all chopped up. Got some onions, got some bell peppers, green bell peppers, a little bit of celery, and my personal favorite, garlic. I actually sliced one of them up small, but I'm also going to put these big whole cloves in there. Now, I've got this heating back up. You can see it's kind of thick right now. As that heats back up, it'll thin out a little more. But I like to go ahead and actually, and this is a matter of debate. Some people tell me I'm wrong. This is the way I do it. I'll put my shrimp right in there before I put any broth or anything else in there. And I'll cook that shrimp right in that oil and right in that roux. Turn that heat up some. And I have found when I worked out of Louisiana and lived in Mississippi, no two people make a gumbo the exact same way. But this was a way that I actually really liked, is to be able to heat that up right in the roux before I start adding anything else. Should let that get a little bit hotter. I didn't think it would cool down on me quite that fast. That's okay. So it'll cook either way. Turn that off. Now this is a lamb broth, like I said, that I made. And at some point in time, I'll do a video on how to make lamb broth. But while that's cooking up, measure out a couple of cups of it. Add it right to my roux. You see how that just thickens right up. And I added a couple of cups at a time, and hopefully this Dutch oven's big enough for what I'm doing. If not, I might have to go to the big stainless steel over here. the rest of that in there. Had about a gallon of broth. Well, most of the rest of it in there anyway. That little piece of lamb fat that was left from before, I'll get that out of there. Just because it doesn't look nice. There we go. A nice creamy texture. And I'm going to start adding my vegetables. Onions, garlic, bell peppers. And you can chop your bell peppers fine if you want to, or leave them big. I like to leave them about that size. I don't mind biting into them. And that's celery. Just top that right off. That's not going to hold too much more. But I'm going to add some sausage, and pretty much any smoked sausage that you can get at the grocery store will work good for that. If you can get some sort of like boudin or something like that, by all means do. That's kind of hard to come across up here in Maine. So the other thing I like to add is I smoked a chicken the other day, and I still have that chicken breast right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just tear chunks off of it and add it to this. Smoked meat going into a gumbo just tastes right. Get that skin in there too. That was a spicy one, so that'll actually add some spice to this gumbo, which probably make my wife happy.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, she likes things spicier than even I do. And I could cut these up and make them look nicer, but I don't see the need. to make sure you don't get any bones in it. And I think that looks pretty good. Get the little bit of roux that's left in my spoon rest back into there, just because I don't like to waste any more than I have to. All right, I'm gonna grab some spices real fast. Awesome. I forgot to mention too, okra. Got to have okra. This is getting full. Now, I don't normally like to use frozen vegetables when I cook something like this, but you try finding fresh okra in Maine this time of year especially. So I'm just going to add that okra to it. That's about all she can handle. This will be lunches for a few days after it's supper tonight. All right, I'm going to sneak under here and get my different spices. Black pepper. And always with this stuff, it's going to be to taste. I like to put a lot of black pepper in there. I like to taste that right on the beginning of the bite. Paprika. I debate whether this is necessary in anything, to be perfectly honest, but it adds some color. A little bit of Chipotle chili powder, because we like to add some spice. Some garlic powder. Well, you put some garlic cloves in there, you can never have enough garlic. Fact. You can never have enough garlic. Salt. And with salt, it's best to go with a little bit too little in the beginning, and you can always add more. You don't want to oversalt it. Mix that all in there. Boy, I've got that full. Yeah. My wife is looking at this like this is going to somehow end up a mess. And I'm going to sit back with a beer and watch him clean this. You see that nice color starting to come in with all those spices added. And just because I like to make it a little more spicy, some crushed red pepper. A little bit goes a long way in something like this. I made a gumbo one time, and told my grandmother about it and told her everything I put in it, and she said, "Jesus Christ, you're ruining yourself for things without flavor." She was always cheerful like that. There we go. All right, now I'm going to let this actually sit and simmer. Let those shrimp finish cooking all the way. And we'll see how this looks in about an hour or two. All right, I'm back. This is done. Take a look at that. It's gotten nice and dark, nice and freaking perfect. I made rice because the traditional way to serve gumbo is on rice. Oh, make sure that's off. My wife's right in the way. And again, when I make rice, I don't generally use cast iron. Serve that on some rice. Nice and thick. And you take a look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And the hard part's going to be letting that cool down so I can take a bite.